Hi, welcome back to the channel. Last week, I gave a couple examples of how you can figure out what your retirement paycheck will actually be now that it's 2025. But what if you're not yet at the retirement years? What are some actionable steps that you can take right now, early in 2025, to put yourself on the path to having a successful financial year and setting yourself up for future years? Well, that's what this video is all about. We're going to go into 4 steps that you can take today to get yourself rolling for a successful 2025. Let's get into it. Like I said, I'm going to give you 4 actionable steps today that you can take to set yourself on the path to financial success this year. Make sure you stick around to number 4 because it's the most complex, but it definitely can be the most impactful. Number 1, get yourself a budget. I know I've talked about this before. I'm going to set a link in the description down below to a video where I go a lot more in depth, but I'm a huge budgeting fan. I don't care how much money you make or don't make. A budget is a great strategy for making sure that you're setting yourself on the right path. I personally use what's called a 20-50-30 budget, meaning that 20% of my money goes to my financial future, 50% goes to my financial needs, groceries, mortgage, things of that nature, and 30% goes to my wants. I have 30% for my fun stuff. It's not about restricting yourself. It's just making sure that your priorities come first. Number 2, track your money. Not only is setting a budget a great idea, but you got to track it too. And I'm not saying every day or compulsively or anything like that, but once a week, sit down, go into You Need a Budget or Money Monarch or EveryDollar or a good old spreadsheet and just track your transactions to make sure you know where your money is going. Even if you just do this for a 3-month period, I promise you, you will find a leak somewhere that you were not intending to have. And it's a good idea to then fix that into the budget to make sure that you can be successful. Number 3, it's time for you to ditch your high fees. I can't tell you how many times people come to me and say, okay, Chad, I've watched your videos and for 5, 10, 15 years, I know I've needed to ditch the high fees of my bank advisor. And it's just so much money that is lost, so much opportunity, spending for your future, all these different things that are lost because you're nervous or you're burying your head in the sand. And I don't know who it is that I'm talking to out there, but if that's you and you've been waiting for something to call your name to say it's time to ditch the high fees, it's me right now. Ditch the high fees. Either move to a robo-advisor like a Wealthsimple or something, or come to us. We have 2 portfolio management partners that are both excellent and both are low fee. I can almost guarantee I'm going to save you some money. Let's show what the impact actually looks like in a spreadsheet here. All right, so here's a super simple spreadsheet. If we start with an initial investment of $50,000 and your investment goes out and gets you 7% in the market, but the fee is 2.4%, you of course are only going to get 4.6% of that, meaning that by the end of the year, you'll have $52,300. Whereas with me, the highest possible fee that you can pay here is 1.6%. Meaning that in that same scenario, 7% growth, 1.6% is the fee. I would argue, somewhat biasedly, that you're going to get better advice from me than at the banks anyways, but that's up to you to decide. You're going to keep 5.4% of that, meaning that by the end of that year, you're going to have $52,700. Now, in 1 year, that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but if we push out to 10 years, it's $6,000 extra wealth being created. That's what this last column is because of that rate cut. 15 years, it's 11 grand. 20 years, it's $20,000. And bear in mind, 1.6% is the highest fee that you would pay with me. I went and looked at my clientele. As of right now, the average is 1.13%. So if I push that into the spreadsheet, after 20 years compared to the bank, you'll have an additional $33,000 in your account just by making that switch. And like I said earlier, I would argue that my portfolio management partners, again, I have 2 of them, I can talk more about that in future videos, are at least on par with the investments that you have. I would argue they're probably better, and our fees are a lot more competitive. All right, we've made it all the way to number 4, and it's about creating wealth out of thin air using an RRSP loan. And this won't necessarily be for everybody. I'll say that right now. It's really, really powerful for those of you who normally get a bit of a tax return anyways, because we get to take what you were normally going to get, add a little bit to the RSP, and we get to create wealth. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But essentially what we do is if we're anticipating a return of, let's say, $1,000, and we know that you are going to get a tax refund if you put a little bit extra in, you take a small loan out for your RSP, whether you get a legitimate RSP loan. Most institutions provide those. It's a short-term loan that you pay back once you get your tax refund, or you just simply take it out of your savings account or a line of credit or something like that. You can repay it with your new refund. Let's get into the spreadsheet. All right, so let's follow the same example I was just saying there. So let's assume you're anticipating a $1,000 expected return already. This is normal for you. You usually get around $1,000 back at tax time. And you go to a website like taxtips.ca, or there's a couple other ones. Ernst & Young also has this on their website. And you figure out that your marginal tax rate is, let's say, 35%. What you can do is you can go out and take a $1,538.46 loan. Granted, I would probably just round that to $1,540, but whatever. And you would get an additional $538.46 in refund, meaning that your total refund now is $1,538.46, or in other words, the exact value that your loan was. So you are now taking $1,000 that you would normally get anyways, and in this assumption, I'm assuming you are investing that $1,000, but you have now created another $538.46 out of thin air, and it's invested, and that gets to grow and compound, and let me tell you, the impact of that gets pretty tremendous. So here's the impact of that. In this set of columns, you're investing $1,000 per year into your RSP. You're getting 6% investment return. In this column, because you've taken out the small investment loan to put into your RRSP, you're actually investing $1,538.46, meaning that by the end of that year, you have $1,630 or an additional $570 to your name. I want to be clear about something. Your out of pocket has not changed between these two sets of scenarios. You were getting the $1,000 anyways, you were going to invest it. Great. The alternative is you take out a loan, and in the case of an RSP loan, you usually only have to pay the interest until you pay it back. If you take it out of your own savings account or even an emergency fund, and I want to be clear, this isn't an emergency, so you know this is a short-term thing. You'd have to be exposed for just a few months. But if you even take, in this case, the $1,500 out of your safety net or your sinking fund or something at something like February 25th, so right before the RSP deadline, and then you file your taxes right away and you put that money back in as fast as you can, you'll be exposed only for about 2 months. That part of this is not great financial advice, so maybe find a different way, maybe a line of credit or something like that. But you can get that in, and all it's going to cost you is the interest for those 2 months while you wait for your refund to get here and you restock the account. So you're out of pocket. Yes, it's tactically different, but it's so nominal that essentially you're creating money out of thin air, and I think that's a win. If we look further into this, let's say 25 years down the road, you've created an additional $31,000 worth of wealth to your name. And this is on a relatively low marginal tax rate. If we go back to the original, and let's say your tax rate was more like 50 is a little high. Let's do something like 43%. Yeah, you have to take a slightly bigger loan to make it work. But now we've added $43,000 of value on that same $1,000 per month, or 75% increase to your account value simply by manipulating legally your tax situation through your RRSP using a short-term loan. All right, so those are my 4 actionable steps you can take today to set yourself up on the path to a successful financial 2025. If it's time for me to review your financial situation, there will be a link in the description down below that comes directly to me. And until next time, keep planning.